you heard today and you're going to hear tomorrow so many speeches, and all of them are great, I'm sure. Especially, I wish I could be here to hear Prime Minister Aznar, who is, Ron, he is a friend of Israel. I heard him many times, and he's a man of conscience and of great, great generosity, of spirit. And Prime Minister, I want you to know that we, the Jewish people, know who our friends are, and we know how to remember our friends. And our gratitude will remain forever to all that you have said and done for our people. As for the time we live in, I'll tell you an anecdote. In a restaurant, the waiter is serving, and the customer says, "It's so hot. Could you put on the air conditioner?" He said, "Of course." After 5 minutes, the same customer called him. He said, "Now it's too cold. Can you turn it off?" He said, "Of course." It goes on and on and on. It's on and off and on and off. Nearby, another customer was sitting, and he called the waiter and he said, "This guy is driving you crazy." And he said, "He's driving me crazy. I'm driving him crazy. There is no air conditioner." And often I wonder whether in the history of humanity, whether we are not here to drive everybody crazy. I know, of course, anti-Semitism is always on the agenda. We drive the anti-Semites crazy. The anti-Semites we were talking about at the table earlier, the anti-Semite hates us because we are too rich or too poor, because we are too particularist or too universalist, too religious or not religious enough. All the contradictions in human nature actually fuse when it comes to the anti-Semite. They are convinced actually that we dominate the world. I mean, they really believe so. I remember years and years ago, I had a discussion on television, and a very good man actually, not a Jew, a good man, a very good man, and he said to me, I was worried about Israel, I'm always worried about Israel. And he says to me, "Why are you worried so much? After all, look, Wall Street is Jewish. In London, who isn't? Money." And I said to him, I have the feeling that you really believe that we control the world. You know what? I accept it. Give us the world for one generation. I promise you, when we will give it back, it won't be worse off. But they believe in it. In our entire history, what we learned, of course, is to go against the trend, which means I believe, and I think we believe, that many, many, many times it is our Jewishness that has been questioned and opposed. There were times when we could save our lives simply by converting, or by assimilating, or by running away. Then came the great tragedy of all tragedies, and that proved that's wrong. It means there was no way out. When ontologically we were in danger. It is the being that was in danger. And we learned something, of course, for it. But one thing we have also learned, in the dilemma or conflict between being Jewish or being universal, what do we say? I believe that the more Jewish the Jew, the more universal the message. And I think this is what we believe in, and this is, I think, what also you, the World Jewish Congress, should do more, meaning you are doing very much, a lot, quite a lot, and often good things in the field of diplomacy and politics. You should also open a department of education. You will tell me it's too large. Don't worry. There is room for everybody. Insist on education. Because whatever the answer is to essential questions, education is and must be its major component. There is no substitute for education. And this is actually what we have always been saying to ourselves and to others. In the Talmudic literature, there is a marvelous way of speaking about education. From time to time, a sage would stop a child in the street and say, Psoket psukha, what did you learn today? And maybe those were the times under Hadrian mainly, when to be Jewish meant capital punishment, to observe the Sabbath, capital punishment, to study, capital punishment, to teach, capital punishment. And nevertheless, they would stop the child in the street. And why did they do it? So of course we believe when the child would say a pasuk or a verse of the Bible that meant a prophecy, what will happen? I think no. It is simply because the sage in those times wanted to feel better. Look, even children, in spite of the danger, in spite of the threats, in spite of death luring everywhere, children are learning Torah. In those times, there was a voice was heard in Usha, in a place between two mountains.